Mental hospital workers of Reddit. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen on the job? Old Ben. I did my internship at a state mental hospital about 11 years ago. There was a guy there who spoke mostly Spanish and was known for exposing himself to various women throughout the campus. He wasn't on my caseload, but he came to plenty of my groups and was polite to me and well-behaved. My last day at the hospital, he walks up to me and hands me a crumpled brown paper bag and says he got something for me in his broken English. I was terrified to look inside, knowing his reputation and his violent history. But I peeked in and was shocked to see a small pink teddy bear. I still have it. Before I started, one patient ate a whole clock that was in his room. I bet that was pretty time-consuming. While I was doing clinicals, nothing terribly exciting happened, because we were kept in the safest unit. But one of the longer-term staff there told us about a girl who was in her room and rubbed holes into both forearms to commit suicide. He had even taken pictures, which were super raunchy though badly lit. But this girl had rubbed the skin and veins in her arm down to the bone. Obviously, she died. I was a rec therapist at a state hospital after college. I worked in what was the aggressive male unit. We had all the murders, child molesters, and aggressive males. On the unit, there was a wing that was locked at all times for the patients that needed extra supervision. One guy was actually court committed to this wing. He would take advantage of the week, so he was on a Q15, which was a visual check every 15 minutes. Once they found him in the bathroom during a check buying pee from another patient for $2. He told the staff that he wanted to gain the power and strength of the other patient. Another guy didn't have an axis eye diagnosis, only mild mental retardation, but was aggressive at times and really big, so the state sent him to the hospital because there was nowhere else for him. He would love cookies and snacks, but did not have money. He figured out that if he went to the actual hospital, they would bring him cookies, snacks, and Shasta ginger ale. So he began to swallow things to go to the hospital. If not watched closely, he would pull a clock off the wall and swallow the batteries just to get snacks. After I left the hospital, I read a story in the paper about a patient drinking bleach and dying. So I called an old coworker, and they confirmed that the patient swallowed bleach after a janitor left a utility closet door unlocked. I have so many stories about that place. I miss working there. It was hands down the most fun I ever had at a job. All the patients loved me because I was the guy that would hang out with them and take them out of the hospital on field trips. My friend told me this one. She works at the mental hospital in my country that gets the most challenging teenage patients. They got this 12-year-old girl who broke her own thigh bone in her room during the third night. Imagine the willpower with that one. Obviously, it became a huge deal because that shouldn't have been able to happen. People being psychotic and even the violent are things you get used to. The extreme incompetence of a large portion of the staff members and the awesome job the administration did of ignoring it was absolutely shocking. For the most part, it was a mess leading to misdiagnosis, understaffing, and mistreatment of patients. But some of them seemed outright malicious. One bitch of a nurse would constantly escalate situations to the point of restraints and drugs being used in order to get back at patients who insulted her. I feel I should note that there are several who were absolute pros, whose skills I truly admired, but they could only pick up so much slack. My grandma worked at a mental hospital and said she watched a man rip out another man's eyeball. I worked in a locked unit for a few months. I've been bitten, scratched, punched, spit on, had my glasses punched off my face, and vaginal fluids and vomit thrown on me. The list goes on. But my worst memories are a toss-up between a guy staring me dead in the eye and slit his wrist with a big plastic pen, or seeing a girl swallow a rubber glove, ice pack, rocks, used tampon, feces, and an MP3 player. During my several sojourns into inpatient care, when I was in my teens and early 20s. There was one male psych nurse assigned to a ward full of female patients between the ages of 16 and 21. You could remain in the youth or juvenile ward until you were 21 because of reasons I don't remember now. Patient problems ranged from depression and anxiety disorders to violent psychosis. Substance abuse was common. It was well known among the patients that you could get cigarettes, alcohol, Adderall, and Vicodin from this one nurse in exchange for sexual favors. He was there for years. He was reported on occasion, but those reports never led to any disciplinary action because, well, who would you believe? The disturbed young ladies with a history of mental illness, behavioral problems, and substance abuse, or the clean-cut, well-loved psychiatric employee with a squeaky clean record. Edit to clarify. Nurse Guy was way more subtle about this than I make it sound. He wasn't handing out pills like Skittles and getting a dozen blowjobs a day, and he was good at picking victims. And also the facility was understaffed and not well run. One morning, a new admission needed to give a urine sample. During her assessment, she seemed relatively aware of things, so nobody thought she'd have difficulty with it. So, I gave her the cup and explained I needed a urine sample. She stared at me blankly. I repeated myself, and when I got no response, I explained I needed to stay in the bathroom to make sure it was a genuine sample. The urine was her own. I turned to give her privacy. The next thing I know, I heard the sink running. She was trying to fill the cup with water. I re-explained exactly what I needed from her. She stared blankly. Mind you, I'm trying to put it as simply as possible at this point. I turned back around to give her privacy. Next thing I know, she's naked and in the shower. I re-explain what I need, and after 15 minutes of this, she complied. I left her in the bathroom and delivered the urine sample to the RN. I was then on assignment of watching a male patient, whose room was next to that particular bathroom. I hear the bathroom door open, but I don't think anything of it. I start to feel uncomfortable, but I can't place why exactly. I happen to turn around to find the female patient from before standing directly behind me, completely naked, staring me down. I avert my eyes and explain she needs to return to the bathroom and put on her clothes. She stares silently, makes an almost unbreakable eye contact with me, and starts rubbing lotion on her breasts. I explain to her again, I need her in her bedroom or the bathroom and call for the nurse. The patient goes in her room as the nurse comes over. When the nurse knocks on her door, the patient comes out fully clothed and stated she had no idea what anybody was talking about. Psychotic patients sure are fun. Not an employee, but someone who had to be placed into a unit for about 3 months as a teenager. We had some free time scheduled in for a few hours every day. Most of us were just depressed, suicidal, or had eating disorders. There was one girl who had been abused as a child, and she had been there for a couple years. She was fucking odd. One day, there was a lot of screaming from the common room, and a bunch of orderlies had to pin her down on the floor. She had bitten off her fucking finger, and then went all Mike Tyson, and bit a chunk off one of the orderlies' ears. I am happy to say that I was moved very shortly after. Though I was on surgery when this happened, but we had a patient who was known to our hospital for sticking light bulbs up his ass when he got stressed. Lots of psych issues, obviously. Go figure. He was back because he'd done it again. So I was familiarizing myself with his case and going through old notes. He's probably had 6 or 7 removals at this point, and every single case report. The surgeon documented the type/model of light bulb. I don't know why, but that just amused me beyond belief. I could nurse, but close enough. I take care of enough mentally ill people. A young man in my unit was extremely distressed that we wouldn't give him water before his surgery. You could aspirate during surgery, and then it's just a shit show, and bit through his Foley catheter, the tube that goes up your urethra to drain your urine, and drank his own urine. That was last week. Old Ben.